tobacco was the number one crop that brought the colonies towards economic success. It is a nicotine-rich leaf prepared by a process of drying and fermentation for smoking or chewing. Tobacco served as the foundation of colonial economy as it was widely popular and highly profitable, despite being a difficult crop to grow. The Native Americans were the first to use tobacco, and later the Europeans would be the ones to introduce it to the world. The Native Americans primarily used tobacco for spiritual means. It was almost always used in correlation to their ritual ceremonies. Its role was often used to seal or end agreements made between tribe members. They also used tobacco as an offering to the spirits. Smoking was how the Native Americans generally used tobacco. They often mixed tobacco with other plant material to create kinnikinnick, where they would smoke through the stem of the plant. It often aids in the healing process as well. After settling in the New World, Europeans traded tobacco through the Columbian Exchange. Britain already had a large market for tobacco, so in 1611, John Rolfe introduced tobacco to Jamestown to see how successful it would be growing in America. It proved to be very successful, as in 1617, 20,000 pounds of Virginia tobacco was sent to England, and 40,000 the next year. Tobacco was widely grown in the colony of Virginia and manufactured into a product back in Europe. The reason tobacco was grown in the colonies and not in Europe was because the land had more space for agriculture. The crop was only profitable if it was grown in a large quantity. Due to the massive agriculture of tobacco, the fieldwork for cheap labor was in high demand. Thus, slavery became the popular method of obtaining cheap labor. Europe did not have the soil to grow tobacco. Along with the space issue, tobacco plants also require soils with plentiful nutrients. When it finishes growing, it drains the nutrients from the soil, making it difficult to grow a lot of tobacco on small land. In Europe, tobacco is manufactured into different products used for smoking and snorting. Smoking was common as it was the first known method of use. Snorting was by far the most popular method of use in England back in the 1600s. The southern colonies were only able to become enriched through tobacco due to the slaves and the addictive trait of the product. The southern colonies did not pick slaves as their first choice of labor, but slaves were the only reason their success came at a fast pace. Before slavery, there was indentured servitude. It was a contract used by land-owning colonists who needed cheap labor. In the contract, a person would sell themselves into the service of an owner for a certain amount of time and receive payment only after completing the contract. It was very similar to slavery. Often the contract extended so that the owner would also have to provide shelter for their indentured servant. After a while, indentured servitude became troublesome for the owners as they saw it would be more profitable to just purchase slaves instead. Slaves did not require proper shelter like the indentured servants, and they were in a never-ending contract. The only way for a slave to end their contract would be to pay for their freedom. But seeing as they were not paid for being slaves, gaining income was not an easy task. Slaves were the better choice for cheap labor because their contract was with their owners and it was a complete opposite of indentured servitude. Another reason for the colony's fast-paced success is because tobacco was addictive. After tobacco was exposed to the eastern continent through the Columbian Exchange, everyone was hooked. It was all thanks to the richness of nicotine present in the plant. The success of tobacco was also due to the false advertisement. Tobacco was perceived as a product that could whiten and preserve teeth, sweeten the mouth, and produce a beneficial effect on the lungs, when in actuality it did the opposite. Inflamed gums, discolored teeth, shriveled lips, and damaged lungs were all you were going to get from tobacco. In the end, tobacco went from being exclusive within the Native American societies to inclusive with the rest of the world. It even brought success to the main colonies of the New World and arguably is one of the main reasons that allowed the colonies to thrive.